Hi, Ralph here from Immortality. Last week we started a series of videos on the role of traditional Chinese medicine and in human health and the sort of fundamental concepts of traditional Chinese medicine. We started a little slowly, just talking about the idea that when we speak of elements and how they map into the organs of the human body, and we talk about energy meridians and all of those things that are core concepts that I'll be explaining in traditional Chinese medicine, I want you to keep an open mind and consider that you may not have to take these things literally, but think of them as a model that's useful for thinking about how the human body works and how human health works. So rather than as something literal, just think of it as a tool that you use to understand the human body. So with that as a preface, let's just jump right into the model itself. And I want to start with 5 elements. There's a lot more to traditional Chinese medicine than that, but this is the most simply understood concept and probably the one that'll look most familiar to people. So in traditional Chinese medicine, they have 5 elements. They map them a little differently than we might do so in the West, starting with wood. And of course, wood usually doesn't show up when we talk in the Western system about the elements of nature, but that's one of the elements in the Chinese system. And the elements are set up in a creative cycle. So wood is creative of the element of fire, because when you burn wood, you create fire. And fire, in turn, creates the element of earth. Because when you do fire, it creates ash, and ash becomes earth. Earth, then, is believed to be creating the element of metal, because you dig in the ground and you find metal, gold and silver and iron and all those good things. And finally, one that's a little bit of a reach for many Westerners, which is that metal creates water. And the best explanation of that I've heard from my teachers is, if you take a piece of metal and you cool it, you'll often see water condensate on the surface of it. So in traditional Chinese medicine, it's considered that it's creating the water. And water, you water plants to grow them, so water is creative in this cycle of wood. Now, just as in nature, one element can create another element. One element can also destroy another element or control it, which is probably a nicer way of saying it. And that's true in the Chinese system as well. Let's grab a different color to represent the controlling cycle. So wood is considered to control earth, because you plant a tree and it grows into the ground and it penetrates the earth, so it's controlling the earth. Earth, in turn, controls water, so you can build a dam and contain water someplace, right? Water contains fire. That seems pretty obvious. Fire is considered to control metal, because you can melt metal with fire. And finally, metal is considered to control wood, because if you have an axe, you can chop down wood. So this creates creative cycle between the elements and a controlling cycle between the elements. Now, because we live in the West, there's a side subject that I have to quickly jump into. To many Westerners, they'll look at this image, and I know there's some people right now looking at it and going Ralph just drew a pentagram. I do find the similarity between the Chinese 5-element system and the Western pentagram interesting, especially from an ethnographic standpoint, because there are a lot of ways you could represent the interaction between elements in nature. We could put them in a line. We could put them in different shapes. That they're so similar has an interesting implications to me. It implies either, one, that the origin is common, which would make this a very old symbol indeed, dating back to the separation. If it appears in China and it appears in the West, then it would go back to, it would predate the separation genetically between the Mongoloid and the Caucasoid races. And genetic studies that have been done in 2017 date that at around 41,000 years ago. So it would make this symbol really, really old. So that's one possibility. A second possibility is that cultures were cross-pollinating. We know, for example, that Pythagoras traveled widely. There's a word in old Indian transcripts. I forget the exact word, but it means Greek teacher, and they were talking about Pythagoras coming to India. So we know that there was a lot of cross-pollination between cultures, and India and China interacted. It's quite possible that Pythagoras was exposed to this concept, or Pythagoras exposed people to the concept. So there's this possibility that there's cross-pollination. Or third, that it was developed independently, the two places, and it's just such a cool model. That it developed independently in multiple places at once. Either way, no matter which of those theories you want to ascribe to, it does say that this symbol is a very powerful tool for modeling interactions within nature and within the human body. And I'm going to wrap up today's talk with that longer aside than I wanted on the subject of the pentagram. And when we come back next, I will show you how Chinese medicine maps these elements to the organs of the human body and the energy system of the human body. Until then, wishing you the best of health.